Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. To excuse the workman, but weekdays workman seems to be what goes on. Men at work and all that sort of stuff, or people at work. Someone's at work anyway. Welcome to another one of the viewers requested videos. This is a Wednesday weekly feature. I have a large list that was requested a while ago. You can add to that list anytime you like by leaving a request for a video in the comments section. If I've already got a request for the video you've asked for, I'll just add your name to that particular item. Now this one today was requested by Maureen. The only time this has ever come up before was we used to have this little thing that used to go on. They used to go on for a while and then they always fizzled out for obvious reasons. But it was called the Orchid tag, and basically somebody would start it by producing a list of questions, like 10 questions, and they would do those questions and those answers, and then they'd tag 2 other people to give their answers to those 10 questions, and the idea was that those people would then tag 2 more. Well, you can see why they fizzle out, can't you? Because either somebody didn't know they were tagged or couldn't be bothered to join in, and that breaks the chain. So, but they, some of them went on for quite a while, so that's the only time I've ever dealt with this. And this is I can't do it exactly, but I'll do it as near as possible. The reason I can't do it exactly is the dates in my notes. Some time ago I had a laptop crash and I lost all my orchid notes. Now somebody managed to recreate some of them from a video that I'd done on my notes. I never asked how. But basically, from a YouTube video showing a spreadsheet, this person recreated quite a lot of that data as a spreadsheet. And I don't believe they typed it in. So that's quite clever. If I sat down for long enough, I could probably work out how to do it, but I'd have a headache. But as a consequence of losing those notes, dates went missing. And this requested video is what is my oldest orchid. Well, obviously having lost my notes, that's difficult to recreate. But I have several orchids in my notes that have got unknown against them. But then looking at when they were last worked on, some of them can be excluded as not being that old. They can't be. I wouldn't have not repotted an orchid for 5 years, would I? So I've excluded those. So in my notes, the oldest orchids go back to 2014, but there are several of them. So I'm not going to bother with that. I'm going to go straight to the other half of the request, which is, along with my oldest, my favourite, and any orchid I've got that's special. Well, the special one that I had unfortunately died. And that was a Vanda that Hannah bought for me, and she bought it for me when she'd been out of work for some time. She had no money, she was living off state benefits and had hardly any money for food, let alone spending it on orchids, but she bought it for me as a present. Unfortunately it didn't make it. That in fact was the orange Vanda that originally should have been part of this year's project orchids, but didn't even make the start because it died. Just one of the ones that succumbed, that was a warmer grower, that just got rot into it and just went away. So what's left then? Well, what's left is this. Sorry, this was requested by Maureen, and that's the channel's name. I'm not getting too personal with first names, that's the name of the channel. There was a lot of people were given an option on YouTube to create comments or create anything on YouTube. You have to have a channel. So a lot of people have had to set up a channel just to leave comments, yeah, which is fine. And they would have thought up a channel name. But YouTube, in its infinite wisdom, decided to change the way that channels are identified, more along the lines of personal names. People were given an opportunity to choose. Those that didn't got given a very strange name, often with the word user in it. It's come down off the roof. You know, like user something and a list of numbers, a sort of meaningless channel name. You can go and change that. Anyway, this channel was Maureen, and this is the plant. It doesn't look much. It's going to be difficult for me to justify this, but those that have been with the channel a long time will have seen this plant in its better days. And it sits just here because it is quite big. Oops. And it is, I know what it is, there's birds up on the roof rooting around in the guttering looking for food, and they throw what's in the gutter out and it comes down on the roof, bits of moss and stuff like that. Messy things, it's probably magpies. And this is Dendrobium hercoglossum. It looks a mess at the moment, but you have to bear in mind this nearly didn't come out of last winter. I nearly lost this. Now it's got a strange growth habit. All of this greenery here is new growths, and some of them are still growing and some of them have stalled. But as a consequence of getting some new growth at the top of the plant, there is also some root activity. So the plant is saved, but it's not growing very much at the moment. You can see also on the end of some canes there's also some green. Yeah? Now the reason being, this is a strange grower. It grows new growths traditionally in the spring. Started late, along with a lot of other things, which is why these canes haven't extended anywhere near as much as they should, but at least they're there. There was nothing on this plant right up to June, July time. Not a sign of any new growth, and all the old leaves were falling off. So it was becoming a leafless plant. Anyway, so it grows new canes from the spring, and they extend to a degree upright. They carry on growing slowly through the winter, gaining in size, and then when they get into what is year 2, they carry on growing and gain weight, which then pulls them over, and they arch over and become pendulous or semi-pendulous. And they carry on growing through that second season, and believe it or not, some of them carry on growing through their second winter and on into their third season. And at some point down the line they start to drop their leaves. And the canes can bloom many times in different places. So it's a strange grower, which is really why it appeals to me. It's just different. I haven't got any other dendrobiums that do anything remotely like that. Most of them grow canes, dendrobiums, canes. It's another word for pseudopulps really, it's just that they're a lot longer and look like bits of bamboo, a lot of them, so canes. But most of them tend to put their growth up from when they start, normally late winter, early spring, to the end of the growing season, and that's it. That's all the growth that cane will do. Sometimes they will carry on growing for a bit, but not like this one. This one is unusual. And the other reason this is special for me is that the blooms are not big, they're not grand, but if you ever see them in real life, you get spellbound by them. Now, I've got lots of pictures and I've still yet to capture it perfectly. What it is that they open like this. So they point downwards. Normally this would be relatively high up in a tree. It's not a shade lover, it likes the, you know, mid to tops of the trees, higher up in the trees, so it gets some sun, you know, through the leaf cover and things. Not in the sun all day, but it gets some. And the blooms hang down. And in the situation that you would normally be in, you would be looking up at those blooms. And if there's bright light, like sun, above them, they glow. They actually glow, as though they've been plugged in and they've got batteries. It's difficult to explain, but they have a very special appearance that I absolutely love. And that consequently, that's probably my favourite bloom. They're not long-lived, but the plant can be in bloom for a very long time, because it starts to bloom and then it has a peak, which can be a mass blooming, and then it tails off. But from when it first starts to when the last blooms drop can be 3 or 4 months. So it can be in bloom for a long time, even though each bloom doesn't last a huge amount of time. I think it's sort of 4 or 5 weeks, I can't remember. But it can be in bloom over a long period of time. And the blooms are just special if those circumstances occur. In here today, it wouldn't happen, because the light above is not that different to the light below. So they would look quite ordinary, quite honestly. But when that set of circumstances occurs, where there's very bright light above, and you look up at those plants, it's like somebody's turned them on, and they are very special. I will put up the best picture I've got, but it's almost impossible to capture with a camera. You know, anybody who knows anything about cameras and uses cameras knows that if you've got relatively small objects, yeah, and you're underneath and the sun's out and you take a picture, they will be a silhouette, because your camera will go, oh, look at all that bright light, and shut down. Too much light, too much. And that leaves the smaller objects that you're trying to photograph silhouetted. Try taking a picture of a plane at an air show if you're looking towards the sun. It's just a silhouette. And that's how they often photograph. It's often very difficult to actually capture that moment. And the only way I've found to do it is when there are quite a few blooms together, and get the camera really close to them so that they obscure that bright light as far as the camera lens is concerned, but the light is still doing the job through the blooms. So you probably won't think much of the blooms in the pictures, because they don't capture that effect. It's something that's it's like trying to photograph Victoria Regina. You can never capture that colour on film. It's always somewhere near it, but never quite right. Now these, you can capture the colour, but you can't capture that effect of the light coming through the blooms. So anyway, that is a survivor, along with some that didn't. Another one that would come into that category is the one that I got the award for, Friedrichsianum. Again, that was bought around the same time, but that is virtually lost. It may survive. I have it. It's behind me. There is some greenery on it, and it did start to grow some roots. I'm hoping to push that one on in the coming year. Luckily, I managed to get a kiki or two off of it, so the plant wouldn't be lost. The hercoglossum rarely produces kikis. It does very occasionally, but not very often. And it's difficult to know when to cut the canes off of that plant, because it will carry on blooming for several years on leafless canes. But there'll come a point when a cane is never going to bloom again. It's very difficult to decide which ones they are. Last year I thought, right, any canes that get through this season, you know, without blooming, I'm going to tie a bit of cotton round or something or other, so that I know when it comes to winter time I can cut those off. So I want to tidy it up a bit. It's getting to look really tatty. Canes are all tangled together and everything. But deciding which ones to sacrifice is difficult when leafless canes still bloom. And not just for 1 year, sometimes 2 years. And given that, you know, they start blooming before all the leaves drop, a cane can produce blooms for 3, sometimes 4 years. It's got a very strange growth habit and a strange blooming habit. And it interests me because of that. So there we go, that's that one. I was thinking of starting the orchid tag again, but oh, I don't know. This is not a good time for YouTube. It just isn't. People have not got the spare time around now to be watching videos. There's things to do, you know, family stuff to sort out, you know, trips, organising travel, trying to find a train with a driver that's not on strike. All these sorts of things, you know, there's other things going on. So I do notice that other people's videos as well as mine are not getting the normal views that they would normally get, that they have been getting through the year. It's just easing off. And I've literally just, I've been out, I've just come back and I put the computer on, I had a look at my comments, and just a minute. Talking amongst yourselves, sorry that was a longer gap. I'd like to say an incredibly big thank you, and anybody who looks down through my comments to see what other people have said will see this. Somebody called Busy Girl, this is not somebody that makes regular comments, has left me a $50 Christmas present in the comments. These, I believe, are called super comments or super chat or something like that, I'm not quite sure. But there is a way of making a donation via a comment, and it comes up in big bright letters. So it's not on this video, obviously, I haven't posted this one yet, but that is a really big thank you. That is incredibly generous. And it will go into the Christmas pot. Not quite sure what's going to be in the pot this year yet, but anyway, a big thank you and a special thank you. That is incredibly generous. Greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. And on that lovely note, I'll call it a day. A day. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.